Hello and welcome to Farm Journal Live. I'm editor Clinton Griffiths from our newsroom here in northern Indiana as we get you updated on the latest headlines as we start another week. Of course, kind of a mixed bag of headlines here on a Monday, especially given the situation over the weekend. Let's get to some of the agricultural news happening today. There is word that China is telling state firms to pause buys of U.S. soybeans and pork. That coming from Reuters, reporting the two state-run buying agencies had inquired about 20 to 30 cargoes of U.S. soybeans, but held off moving ahead. There's also reports some pork purchases were being canceled by China. It comes as President Trump said last week on Friday that the U.S. would eliminate special treatment for Hong Kong over China's crackdown on the city's independence. However, we've also heard some reports that indicate that Chinese state firms are asking for Pacific Northwest offers of U.S. soybeans, and that was happening yesterday. To help kind of sort through it all, let's bring in Don Roose of U.S. Commodities. Don, as we get these headlines today, what's your take and what's your read here on a Monday?
Yeah, hi, Clinton. I think when you look at it, the market tried to move higher overnight, actually up at one time 7.5 cents on soybeans, more of a mixed type of trade on corn and wheat. But then as the news started to break from the different media that the two of the big Chinese buying arms, COFCO and Sinograin, were instructed to halt U.S. purchases of ag commodities, that really sent the market under a lot of pressure here as we opened early this morning. But the market found some strength after that, and I think just still some uncertainty. So Clinton, is just the tensions with China. They continue to mount. The Trump administration's punching pretty hard at China on the virus and on Hong Kong. So the market's trying to sort it out at the present time, but actually a fairly positive reaction after trying to go lower after that announcement, Clinton.
It is interesting. On Friday, we saw the president come out and make really strong statements regarding China and Hong Kong, obviously pulling out funding from the WHO and a myriad of other things that he had to say on Friday. But yet, stocks finished up. We have some strength here on stocks to start Monday. It seems like the market is not seeing the signals that we would have expected, maybe given the tone been more serious, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's a market. I think part of the issue with a lot of the market direction, the market reaction, is the fact that the funds right now are sitting a pretty big short. As of Tuesday, 276,000 contracts. And that's about the upper end of the limits, 250, 300,000 on a short position on corn. So I think that's part of the issue. Is that we've just kind of ran out of sellers, and we know how the producer is. He's not interested in selling at these price levels either. And then they have, a little more time with the COVID extension on the loan if the producer's taken out a loan. But it most definitely is all focus on the China-U.S. trade relationship, because that's one of the positive things, Clinton, along with the weather. And so far, the weather is not that big of a player here yet from an issue standpoint.
Yeah, we have focused pretty hard on what's going on with the U.S.-China trade deal. I think the big question is will China get to the commitments that they said they would meet in that trade deal, somewhere around that 30 to 35, $40 billion range? What's your read on whether or not we can get there? They have been buying out of South America pretty hard.
Yeah, and I think that's the real issue. It looks like China, they've been very aggressive buying Brazilian soybeans. In fact, it's quite surprising that they're still buying even last week for the August, September, October, November slots. That's our time frame. So we're supposed to have this meeting in early July on how the buying is going. Are they meeting the targets? And I think you have to say right now we're probably not. And, the over the weekend chatter isn't going to do anything to add to that. So that is one of the big potential hopeful supportive things underneath the market, like we said. And so far, I would say it's more of a neutral to negative. And remember, we got the report next week coming out, the June monthly report. Realistically, probably are going to take down the soybean export demand down 50 to 75 million, and even ethanol demand down 50 to 100 million. So, we need some kind of a positive life vest here soon as we're marching to a crop.
Yeah, it seems like we continue to go each day looking for some sort of positive to kind of grab onto as we go through what the coronavirus and this pandemic has meant for our markets and the way that it's changed demand structure out from under what we expected when we began in January. We're celebrating Pork Week this week here at Farm Journal, and I just saw some stats that said processing capacity for hogs down just 8% now, was down 45%. Seems like that's starting to come back, some of the processing. Where do you sit on it as far as the proteins go and the ability to see these markets move?
Well, there's no doubt that the hog market, we are bouncing the slaughter back, but it's a little disappointing that we had another problem pop up in northwest Iowa. They slaughtered 3.5% of the hogs. So you have to ask yourself, while we're moving forward, we're improving the slaughter capacity, but realistically, are we ever going to move past that 95% on hogs? Now, the cattle market seems to be doing a little bit better. It looks like our cattle slaughter this week could bounce all the way back to 630,000 head. Last week in a short kill, close to 445,000. But, so cattle are bouncing back a little bit more. We're still backing up cattle. But on the hog front, we have euthanization going on. You don't like to talk about that. It's not, it's not anything that you think is a good thing. But that's the trouble with the hog industry. It's such a flow through, and the producers are doing everything they can to slow down the weight gains and everything else. So it's fortunate that we are moving into a slaughter capacity that's picking up a bit, Clinton. So we'll see how we get through this. But watch the weights on both cattle and hogs is what I would say.
Don, I know obviously it's always challenging given the circumstances we're in, but give me one thing you're optimistic about for the agricultural industry here over the next month to 2 months.
Yeah, I think, we do think that when you look at the agriculture that, there's some positive things that you can look at. The slaughter capacity increasing, that's a good thing. The demand, hopefully, as the price comes down, demand's supposed to improve on both the beef and the pork. We know the cutouts just got extremely high, and so the setback in the cutout is a good thing.
All right, we'll appreciate that. Don Roose, U.S. Commodities, thanks for joining us on Farm Journal Live. Like I said, it is Pork Week. The top pork producing county in the state of Iowa is Washington County, and it's the third largest producing county in the U.S. And for Pork Week, our own Betsy Gibbon traveled to visit one town in that county that relies heavily on those ag dollars to see how they're doing amid the coronavirus pandemic.
Iowa did not officially shut down due to COVID-19, but many businesses within the state did. We traveled to Washington, Iowa to see how business is going as they start to open up. And these are businesses which rely on customers who work in the pork industry.
Usually noon hour on the square in Washington, it's hard to find a spot to park.
It's lunch hour in Washington, Iowa, and none other but the square, where shops, restaurants, and businesses sit.
So you're eating in the car?
So we're eating in the car. And that's the one thing in retirement we miss is eating in restaurants.
Today, many are slowly starting to reopen. Streets away, a few people are getting takeout.
I came to get lunch today, trying to keep some money going for the local businesses, everybody's still got bills and everything.
As a full return to normal may take some time.
My fiance actually is a waitress and bartender for some side jobs, so she's been laid off.
According to Iowa Workforce Development, the state's April unemployment rate was 10.7%. Washington County was 8.2%, not the highest, but not the lowest county rate.
I'm still able to work. She's still able to work, so we're fortunate.
A member of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce admitting business is not as strong as it typically is under normal conditions, but it's improving as reopening continues.
We're getting along. We're going through the same growing pains and self-isolation as everybody else, but we're getting along.
And in this county, as Gallagher explains, agriculture is tremendously important economically. The state of Iowa had more than 141,000 jobs dedicated to the pork industry back in 2017, with sales of $36.7 billion. Of that, Washington County had nearly 2,000 jobs with sales of more than $481 million back in 2017.
Washington County is really built on agriculture, period.
Across town, Ace and More supplies different parts, some related to hog barns and Washington County's nearly 1 million head pork industry.
Thankfully, we were here for them to be open, and so they could actually continue to do their work and farm at home. When after things break, they can come here and get repair parts.
Jones said COVID-19 brought some adjustments, but the business is doing quite well.
But we did reduce some hours to make sure we were staffed properly to make the store operational.
As traffic on the square settles down after lunch, there's a longing to get back to normal, and soon. Reporting in Washington.
Social distancing, self-isolation, and caring for loved ones. A time for agriculture to be proud, to be essential. Now, it's changing. While states start to reopen and jobs resume, out here, the clouds are building. The path is uncertain. It's not the first time, it won't be the last. But we'll farm on. This soil is soaked in generations of sweat, of reinvention, of grit. Farm on is a calling. It's a mantra, a mindset. When the horizon dims and things turn dark, we'll find the light. We may be doing this for you, but we're also doing it for them. 2020, now's the time to farm on.